Yokohama, the second largest city of Japan, brings together heads of state and government, representatives of international and regional organizations, civil societies, NGOs, and the private sector to attend the Tokyo International Conference on African Development, TICAD, being held from 28th to 30th August at the Pacifico Yokohama in Yokohama City. The leaders gather with one clear purpose at this very important international conference: development of Africa and fostering of bilateral relationships amongst countries. Malawi is being represented by Vice President Right Honorable Everton Chimulirenji as delegated by President Professor Arthur Peter Mutharika. Upon arrival in the city of Yokohama, Right Honorable Chimulirenji and Madame Judith Chimulirenji are welcomed at the Yokohama Bay Tokyo Hotel by Minister of Trade, Industry and Tourism Salim Bagas, Minister of Transport Raf Juma, among other government officials and staff from the Malawi Embassy in Japan, among many others. The anticipation from the Malawi delegation is high that Malawi stands to benefit from the TICAD 7, sentiments echoed by Foreign Affairs Minister Francis Kasaira.
We are going to push for the inclusion of the master plan for the Chireka Airport. I want to make sure that that airport is upgraded to international standards, and we want the Japanese to be involved. And also have a number of infrastructure projects that we want to propose to TICAD, including the famous Ntayamo Bridge at Chiromo. We believe that the Japanese have had quite a number of studies at that place. So this time around, we think it's time that we can go for funding. So we are going to talk about those projects and the many other projects, projects to do with the disaster risk management.
TICAD, co-sponsored by the United Nations, the United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, the African Union Commission, and the World Bank, was launched by Japan in 1993. Among some of their achievements, in 2016, during TICAD 7, held in Nairobi, Kenya, Japan committed itself to a $30 billion investment package by 2018, including a $10 billion investment in infrastructural development, of which Malawi is a beneficiary through a number of projects.
We've been discussing with the Japanese government on a number of projects, including the dualization of the road from the police in Lirongwe all the way getting into town to almost Nchinji roundabout. That project was approved, and we are hoping that there will be resources made available to do the construction. Then we're talking of the upgrading of Domas Teachers College, which was also approved. And we're also talking of other so many projects that under TICAD 6 were approved, and the resources were made available. We're going to review how far we have gone on those.
Aside the main deliberations by presidents, heads of state and government representatives, there are a number of side events slated for countries to engage in bilateral talks with the host nation, and Malawi Vice President and cabinet ministers that are part of the Malawi delegation at the summit have a number of such meetings to attend. Before the opening ceremony, Vice President of the Republic of Malawi gets busier. Faced on his diary on the sidelines of the summit is a meeting with the Executive Senior Vice President for the Japanese International Cooperation Agency, JICA, Kazuhiko Koshiwaka. The meeting is a seal of a good working relationship between the governments of Japan through JICA and Malawi. According to the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Francis Kasaira, the Vice President pitched a number of infrastructure development projects to the JICA delegation for consideration.
One important aspect that we would want to continue doing, engaging the Japanese government through JICA, is also in the human capacity development and trade. We have investors here that would want to invest in Africa, And we have young people that would want to learn a few things in different cultures, and they come to Malawi as volunteers. So we want more of those to come, support us in several sectors, share the experiences that they have, and so they can learn from our culture and gain some experience. These are things that we'll continue to do, and we'll continue to engage JICA.
For his part, the Executive Senior Vice President for JICA, Koshikawa Kazuhiko, promises continued support to Malawi and engage in further dialogue on the proposed projects.
We would like to continue dialogue on these requested projects through our embassies in Malawi and the JICA office in Malawi. And also I mentioned the Malawi #1 country in terms of accepting Japanese young volunteers. Up to now, 1,000 young volunteers spent 2 years in Malawi and contributing to the development, social and economic development of Malawi. So there is a very big alumni association of the Japanese young volunteer who just served in the Malawi. So Malawi is very, in many ways, a very close country for Japan and to JICA.
From the JICA meeting, now to the TICAD business. The Malawi Vice President is among African leaders that are attending the opening ceremony at the Pacifico, Yokohama. In his opening remarks, the Prime Minister of Japan, Shinzo Abe, called on African countries to unite and find lasting solutions to challenges that the continent is facing. He called on the African leaders to have a zeal in fighting corruption, one of the many actions that would help grow their economies. He therefore reassured the countries of Japanese government's commitment in developing Africa.
I make this pledge to you. The government of Japan will put forth every possible effort so that the power of Japanese private investment of $20 billion in 3 years should, in the years to come, be surpassed anew from one day to the next. For example, our cooperation with local financial institutions will create a new trade insurance that could cover 100% of your transactions. We will do whatever it takes to assist the advancement of Japanese companies into Africa.
For his part, the Secretary General for the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, called on the leaders to treat the TICAD idea as the door to achieving peace, security, and human development. He hailed the Japanese government for the TICAD project, saying this is a partnership that has truly transformed Africa. On the sidelines of the summit, Malawi has once again come on the spotlight. This time, a commendation from the Global Fund on the significant progress made in the fight against HIV, tuberculosis, and malaria. During a meeting with the Vice President of Malawi, Right Honorable Everton Chimulirenji, on the sidelines of the TICAD Summit in Japan, Executive Director for the Global Fund, Peter Sands, says Malawi is one of the African countries that have scored highly in the fight against HIV, TB, and malaria. He says this is the reason why the Global Fund has committed itself to fund new interventions in Malawi for the next 3 years because of its track record.
We discussed two topics. The first was the progress that has been made in the fight against HIV, TB, and malaria in Malawi, but also the priorities for the next phase, where we need to put an even greater focus on prevention and diagnostics. The second topic was the replenishment of the Global Fund, since the amount of money that donors give the Global Fund enables us to support actions in countries like Malawi, and the advocacy that the President has supported us with in making sure we have a successful replenishment. There are a whole range of different medical technologies, different approaches that across the three diseases we will be progressing during the next phase of our work together in partnership. To give you a couple of examples, we want to put even greater focus on protecting adolescent girls and young women who are particularly vulnerable to HIV. And on malaria, we need to be rolling out the next generation of bed nets, because we are seeing increasing resistance from mosquitoes to the insecticides that are used in the current generation. So we need to have a new generation that is better able to protect people from malaria.
In search of investment opportunities that would increase trade between Japan and African countries, the 7th TICAD Summit has a main side event, the Japan-African Business Forum. On the sidelines of the 7th TICAD Summit, currently underway here in Yokohama, Japan, is an opportunity for business networking and activities through the Japan-Africa Business Forum and Expo. This is the official side event of the TICAD 7 Summit, aimed at providing a wider range of business opportunities. And behind me, as you can see, companies from Japan and of course across Africa, they are displaying their products, marketing their country, trying to find some business opportunities. And we are yet to see what Malawi has to offer here at the Japan-Africa Business Forum and Expo. Well, Malawi takes advantage of the Japan-African Forum and Expo, and they have a booth with products from Malawi on display. Well, it starts from home with the Best Buy Malawi, as advocated by President Professor Arthur Peter Mutharika. Now the tide is shifting from Malawi being a consuming nation now to a producing nation whose products should be able to attract the international market. As you can see, we have Malawi gin there, made in Malawi, Malawi vodka, Mzuzu coffee, in search for markets or to market their product.
You see, for example, Malawi Trade Investment Center has brought products from Malawi. And you can see that there are a lot of Japanese people who are actually looking for these products. What I would like to say is to firstly encourage the Malawian business people to produce quality products and also participate in these exhibitions all over the world. Because you see, for example, I've seen like moringa is going like a hot cake. Now, when you see moringa in Malawi, you see like one of those things. But here, it is a product which has got a market. Apart from that, there's coffee, there's honey, there are so many things which they have brought here. What I'm trying to say is that Malawians should produce firstly high quality products. Secondly, they should also participate in all exhibitions here in Japan as well as other countries, because our products, we have seen that they are marketable.
Minister of Transport and Public Works, Ralph Chuma, is part of the Malawi delegation, also leading in the negotiations for more support from the Japanese government on several infrastructure development projects in Malawi. He says the TICAD 7 experience will greatly benefit Malawi.
As a country, we expect to benefit from the participation in the TICAD 7, which is happening here in Yokohama in this year 2019. Basically, as you know, Malawi has a huge deficit in terms of infrastructure, and I will insist on transport infrastructure. I think this emanates from three angles. One, as you can see, that somehow we are a bit late. Only a quarter of all our classified roads in the country are paved, which means a good number of people in the rural areas have got no access to better roads. Therefore, they cannot facilitate their trade very well, but also they cannot access social services. The second reason is the floods that we had. The effects of those floods, we saw quite a substantial stretch of roads, but also bridges, also railway being washed away. So these have to be reconstructed. And the third factor is that we have a national transport plan, which is a master transport plan, which was launched by His Excellency the President, Professor Arthur Peter Mutharika. Now, this one is calling us to actually shift from predominantly using roads to start substantially using railway and water transport in order to reduce costs. Now, all these, if you can see, are calling for more and more improvement in infrastructure, transport infrastructure. When we look at our country. As a minister myself, the question that grapple with is a question like, being a landlocked country, how can we best connect it to the world in a cheaper way? Not in a way as we are doing now, where we find our exports and imports actually more expensive than anywhere else in the region. Yes, we are landlocked, but we have a huge body of water, and a huge part of transportation of cargo could have been used on the water transport sector. We have got a good network of railway from west to east, covering the whole area, and from the south going all the way to the central part of the country. We have railway, but perhaps only 20%, if not 30% of the railway is being used. The other part is not being used. So there is need to rehabilitate several areas, and there's need to, with a political will, to start using the railway. Now, if you look at all these, you will see that they all boil down to need of resources. We need resources to upgrade our transport infrastructure. Our coming here to participate in this TICAD is giving us an opportunity to tap into the resources that Japan is offering to all African countries. Now, these resources can be tapped through ODA, official assistance, government to government. They can be tapped through private sector capital, where we have a number of private investors also participating in this TICAD who are presenting themselves to us for opportunities to invest in our country. And in Malawi, we have got that law, PPP, where these could be accommodated using that law. So we are also here try to market and sell the projects that we have in the pipeline, so that if they are interested, they could bring their capital and invest. We can also tap their resources using technology transfer, because sometimes it's all about technology. It's all about how efficient your assets or your infrastructure is. But also we could benefit in so many ways, including perhaps loans, not necessarily official assistance, but also using the Japanese loan window, which is also there. So I believe that as a country we can.
The diary for Right Honorable Everton Chimulirenji on the sidelines of the summit takes him to a bilateral meeting with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. During the meeting, the Malawi Vice President commended the Japanese government for playing an important role in the development of Malawi through TICAD, JICA and other aid packages that have helped unlock economic potential of Malawi. Right Honorable Chimulirenji therefore asked the Japanese government to support various projects in the areas of infrastructure development, trade and education.
The summit has been very fruitful. I was privileged to meet the Prime Minister, and during the meeting we made sure that we asked him what we are thinking that the government of Japan should assist Malawi. We mentioned things like the construction of Tayamoyo Bridge. We also asked for the extension of the road, which is yet to be funded from the police up to Nchinji roundabout. So we also asked him about the resources which will be used to assist people which were affected by the floods disaster. Apart from that, we think we can also be assisted in sectors like agriculture, education, health, among other sectors in Malawi.
The 7th TICAD summit has ended, and for the Malawi delegation, it's time to head back home. But before heading to Malawi, some few assignments in Tokyo, Japan. Together with other African leaders, the Right Honorable Vice President of Malawi paid a courtesy visit to Emperor Naruhito at the Imperial Palace before proceeding to the 3rd Hideo Noguchi Africa Prize presentation ceremony and commemorative banquet at the Meiji Kinenikan in Tokyo, Japan, which was strictly by invitation. Another opportunity to market Malawi in Japan. The Malawi Vice President is the guest of honor at the Japan-Malawi Forum 2019 at the JICA Global Plaza in Tokyo, where he urges Malawians living in Japan to seek for opportunities that can be marketed to the Japanese business community.
Government launched Malawi's first ever diaspora engagement policy and the diaspora portal in February this year to provide a framework and an interactive platform for continuous engagement and the seamless link between the Malawi diaspora and their homeland.
He further says government of Malawi has an enabling environment for both local and foreign investments.
One of the priorities of the Malawi government is to increase trade and investment with Japanese entrepreneurs. We look forward to export a variety of agricultural products to the Japanese market and welcome investments in food processing, energy, mining, and tourism, among others. I am confident that through this forum, the positive image of Malawi, which pertains to peace and stability, vast natural resources, and many tourist attractions, such as Mulanje Mountain, wildlife, and Lake Malawi, among others, will be shared with the Japanese business community and investors.
And for some Malawians, working and studying in Japan is quite an experience.
Japan is a very nice experience. Our program is unique. We do not only learn in class, but we also taught how to communicate with Japanese investors and how to bring them back to Malawi. So it's been a nice experience. I'm learning a lot, and if our government will be able to implement some of the lessons, it will be a nice experience worth learning. I mean, I would invite as many students as they can to come here and learn.
As you know that Japan is very advanced and it's totally different from the way things are in Malawi. So there are a lot of things that I'm learning here, one of which is time management, work ethics, and a commitment to work. Here I'm teaching IB education, which is International Baccalaureate. So the way that sort of education system is set up, it is set up in a way that if applied in Malawi, people would benefit a lot. We have issues to do with interdisciplinary learning, which has to do with teachers teaching mathematics and those teaching, let's say, geography, coming together to teach the students using one theme. So I think this is one of the things that we need in Malawi, where we need to show a link between subjects, among other things. Maybe I'm learning how to teach students to be self-reliant. That's one thing that I've learned in the Japanese society. I think taking things like those into Malawian society and then looking at the problems that we have and how we could curb them, I think it would really help us as Malawians.
The Malawi delegation to the summit leaves Japan a satisfied lot, carrying with them expectations with an emphasis on infrastructure development and bolstering of trade between Malawi and other African countries, including Japan. They came, they represented Malawi. Now it's time to go back home.
Oh,